Now, following the recommendation of the Presidential Committee on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Nigeria will sign the agreement with conditions. Now, the phase one of the agreement was adopted by African Union heads of state at its 10th Extraordinary Summit in Kigali, Rwanda on March 21st, 2018. But Nigeria pulled out of the signing ceremony at the last minute following agitations from the private sector. The agreement will make Nigeria a dumping ground for goods and services in Africa. And I've got with me Chika Mbonu, our in-house analyst. Good to have you with us, Chika. So, a lot has been said about this, free trade agreement and what have you. But what are the benefits of this agreement?
Since the formation, this will be the largest free trade agreement in the world since the formation of the World Trade Organization in 1994. Bringing together 1.3 billion people in Africa, with a national combined output of about $2.2 trillion, together in Africa. So it's a massive, massive market. Now, indeed, the reports put it that once the transition takes place, you will have about 16 billion, in value created for the African countries immediately when it's done. And then intra-African trade will grow by about 33%. Now, get to know this. Currently, intra-African trade between African countries is only about 14% of the total trade of African countries around the whole world. So it means that African countries trade with other parts of the world by up to 85%. So the trade between African countries is very, 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 very low. So this agreement will help in expanding the trade relationship between African countries. Indeed,
all right.
The report also says that this will enhance and grow the GDP of several African countries by a minimum of 3%, including Nigeria.
Very good, Chika. But I'd like you to hold your thoughts on those issues. We'll be right back after this break. All right, it's good to have you back on Global Business Report, and we'll be talking about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And of course, Chika Mbonu is still with me in the studio. It's good to have you again, Chika. Why is Nigeria so far opposed to this? Now, we heard that there were some conditions that were being put, by the administration before signing, as it were.
Nigeria is Africa's largest market, 200 million people. And even without this free trade agreement, the kind of things we have been battling with over here, that smuggling and dumping has been one of the number one problems affecting Nigerian industries, and it hurt their performance and results, and affected our employment of our people. Now, there's a risk that when you have this free trade agreement, there'll be a rise in the smuggling and abuse of what they call the rule of origin principle. And so under the guise of this program, some traders or some other people may actually, take products from other countries outside Africa and disguise them as made in Africa and then bring them into Nigeria, which will abuse the program. So that's the major issue, because of the fact that Nigeria may just suddenly become a dumping ground for products, and the objectives for the program or the trade agreement will be defeated. And that has been the major issue, where the NLC is starting, and then Manufacturing Association of Nigeria have been opposed to the Nigeria just walking into the agreement without thinking through it. And hence, the setting of the committee of 44 people to look at the pros and cons of the program and come out with the best routes for us, medium, short-term, and long-term, on how to get into the agreement, benefiting the country, very well. As the president said, it's not as, let's get it right. It's not we don't support trade agreements, but we want it to be fair and equitable. That's basically what it is, and protect the country and in the country's best interests.
Very good. Now, when we take a look at the scenarios that you've just analyzed, you tend to wonder that, look, can and will Nigeria ever sign this agreement, you think?
Luckily, while reading through the president's speech, I thought that the president would just accept the report sent to him and just go on. But he actually preempted the report and spoke heavily that, of course, these are the downsides of the program. These are so there are downsides and upsides. But on the balance, as the committee said, this is good for Nigeria. And I do believe that And the committee recommended that Nigeria should benefit, use the opportunity of the negotiation phase of the agreement and put in the conditions that will protect our local industry and local markets. I think that's basically what is going to happen.
Very good. Now, this cautious approach by Nigeria, do you think it's justified, as it were? Yes, it's better to get a good deal here, regarding this, and you've already highlighted the concerns raised by the administration. So what are your thoughts? Well,
we have always known that the government in power has always been very, very cautious. And indeed, some people have accused them of anti-free markets in the way they manage so many other issues that affect the economy. But I guess also they are right in the sense that that currently, as we hear, as we're talking now, Nigeria is having, have this ECOWAS free trade agreement. Nigeria is having problems with that too. Similar to the problems is envisaging that we have with the African free trade agreement.
Indeed.
So those problems are genuine, they are real, and so they need to be addressed to enable us to make sure that we don't become dumping ground for products from other countries, not in Africa.
Very good. And still looking at some of the challenges, you can't help but think that, look, some of these African countries still have their colonial ties to some of these, heritage countries, as it were. And then you tend to think, okay, fine. Just like you mentioned the ECOWAS thing, and we're still talking about the issue of, single currency. That it's been on the front burner for a long time. So in view of all these ties and the traditional way of doing economics and, bilateral trades, how will it factor in this new trade agreement?
Well, what the issue you brought up now is very important because the East Africans have their cluster. The French-speaking West Africa have their cluster. Our brothers in the North have their cluster. And it's always been a limiting factor to Africa becoming one. But we're hoping that this will be different. The African Union has been pushing for this. The Afrexim Bank has also been pushing for this. The African Development Bank has been pushing for this. Indeed, the theme now has been Africa producing for Africa. And we hope that that will be the overriding issue that will defeat or simmer all these other subsets of associations that most African countries belong. So they don't override the one African interest. Yes, but your point is valid. But we hope that Africa will triumph this time around. Hopefully
so, because if it's one thing to have agreement, it's another thing to actually implement it. Just lately, we're hearing that the East African community bloc, one or two countries wanted to join with them. And it seems they're making headway in that direction. But, knowing the African way of doing things and the AU, which has been trying to be flexible, as it were, on all of this. So how do you see this playing out, realistically?
Yeah, and he didn't add some other thing in the role of China in Africa. Remember, China has been trying to, push into Africa. And a lot of Chinese products have been, coming into Africa.
Of course.
So with the one African market now, that might put some barriers to their, the Africa being their number one market.
Indeed.
So there might be a problem. Yeah. But I'm just, I'm hoping, and because the push for Africa is being paramount. It's paramount now, and luckily for us, the Afrexim Bank is becoming stronger. The African Development Bank is becoming stronger, and there are major anchor points pushing for this to happen. And African countries have become more aware. There's more transparent democracy in some African countries now also, where you have, in the past, you had a lot of puppets and governments who could be, told to do anything. But now we have a lot of, very combative, informed head of states, and who are thinking of Africa. And the advantages for the whole Africa is better for all of us. I think that we believe we'll succeed this time.
Indeed, it's better to be hopeful. All right, Chika and Mbonu, I'd like to thank you for your thoughts on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and Nigeria's cautious approach towards it. It's good to have you.